Hi everyone, I'm Sotiris Sideris. Welcome to this session, data journalist with Reporters United and CCIJ. Jose, please introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, my name is Jose. I am a journalist and until very recently I was also working with Arena for Journalism in Europe, and we hosted and coordinated the Cities for Rent investigation we're going to be telling you about, focusing on the case of Greece.
So yeah, as Jose said, Cities for Rent, a cross-border investigation we did last year. It was a collaboration between 25 different people, reporters, data journalists, editors, database experts. We tried to investigate all these big companies, we call them corporate landlords, that come to our cities and buy big chunks of apartments, full blocks of apartments. It wasn't easy. And today we will be talking about the Greek part. I don't know about the presentation, what I can do, or how it works. But anyhow, so we wanted to investigate corporate landlords in Europe, focusing for me in Greece. But guess what? Data is not available. I mean, data, as you might know, the cadastry of Greece is now being digitized. It's been working for some regions, though it's not still operating for Athens. And even if it was online and operating as it should, you can have access as a journalist. You can have access to this database only as a lawyer or as an engineer. So impossible to get who owns what in Athens. And instead of doing this, I invented an alternative methodology which focused on real estate, private property auctions in Greece. Greek people will already know what I'm talking about. We're talking about plistiriasmous, housing auctions. So I focused on getting information, not the easy way, from that online website. It's the official website developed by the government together with the commission, and it's part of the agreement of the memorandum, So each auction that is happening in Greece must be uploaded on that platform. When I did the first round of getting this information using scraping back in 2017, there were about 45,000 different auctions throughout Greece. In 2019, I don't remember how many there were, but today are more than 145,000 different, different auctions. So my period of investigating auctions in Athens, I focused on Athens, was 2018 until 2021, because that's when the investigation took place. And I managed to find and match auctions with the hastener of the auction and map them down, which is something that we haven't done before. It's so bad that we cannot have the presentation we have prepared, because you could see the visual result of that. If somebody can help from IMED, thanks. No. So, yeah. I could show you how we did it. I can speak about that, of course, meaning that when you get 2 minutes for the presentation, thank you. I'll keep talking and... yes, Jose, please.
Let me help you during these 2 minutes, because maybe to give you guys an idea of the whole investigation, as Sotiris said, we were a big team. At the beginning, we were covering 16 countries, but focusing on one city per country. The idea was to map, in several senses, big owners of homes, because there are these companies that have been buying homes all over big cities in Europe. And our highest ambition was an actual map of Europe with our cities there, where you could, for example, somehow we could visualize the amount of homes or the biggest owners, but then you could click on a city and then we could zoom in and then you could see in that city the biggest owners. And when we say biggest, for example, in the case of Berlin, where I'm based, is tens of thousands of homes. One single company owns tens of thousands of homes. That's a lot. And that trend with differences is quite common among big cities in Europe. The case of Athens is particular, so this will tell us more about that. So that's what he was saying. That's what we would like to show you the presentation as about the mapping. And we produced, based on his work, all of us as a team, amazing visualizations. In the case of Athens, using the methodology he had to come up with himself, because there is no data. You can't know, you can't access who are these big owners in Greece, in Athens. It's impossible. In other cities in Europe, it's more or less easy. In others, it's difficult, but it's doable. And that was, to me, part, because Sotiris was in charge of Greece, and I was the overall coordinator. I was kind of trying to keep the overview of everything. And for me, that's part of the story. How we are all in Europe, single markets, same regulations, same companies, acting across borders, so many differences to try and tell that story, to try and account for that. And now hopefully you can show us.
No, please continue, because we don't have it yet.
Okay, no. So just to tell you, I think we managed to do great things to start the conversation, but also there were some shortcomings, which I believe are part of the story. And that ideal map that we wanted to produce, that highest ambition, we didn't manage for a number of reasons. This is a short session. Now you know us. We're going to be here for days. Please, if there's no time, reach out, come to us, ask us, then also online. We can continue the conversation.
Thanks. I'll stick to the first slide for the photos. Thanks. Let's move. We talked about that. I want to go through the methodology, really. Of course, as I said before, lack of data was one of the biggest issues that we have to deal with, especially in Greece. And you can see the difference between different countries. Like in Norway or in Scandinavia in general, you can get granular data for the address, who owns the place, their income, when the house was bought, everything. Greece, not yet. So we managed to visualize some results, some data from Eurostat, so we had a common framework to work all together. And here we see the, how do you call it? Housing cost overburden. That visualization shows how much of their income households in each country spend to cover housing expenses. Greece is, of course, on top of that list, both in metropolitan cities, small towns, and rural areas. So you understand all the burden Greek households has to deal with daily. Private property auctions in Athens, how we collected, analyzed, and mapped 2,300 almost auctions between 2018 and 2021. That's the outcome. That's the final map that we created. This is Athens, mapped by the auction properties that we managed to find and visualize. This is Syntagma. Okay. Kypseli up north with Patissia. It's the municipality of Athens. It's not the whole region. It's not Attiki. It's the municipality of Athens. So you see, as we go up, more auctions, but the bubble, the circle, illustrates the first bid for that auction. How much one person can buy that property under auction. And then, as we move to the center, you see all the real expensive houses of Athens. That's the website. That's the platform I talked in the beginning, the eauction.gr. That's a screenshot from a couple of weeks ago when I was preparing that presentation. So that's the number of electronic auctions registered until today. The number goes up daily. Okay? So that's the second thing you see. You search for all the auctions and you end up in that list of auctions with all the different information, auction date, the debtor, object to be auctioned, etc., as well as the first bid. So we're talking about thousands. How we did that? I take some coding and some magic to do that. And that's the next page of each individual auction, right? We go from the very general to less general to very specific. That's the latest, the last part you see on that website. How we did it. Scraping. Data nerds, let's unite, otherwise bear with me. So the first round of scraping provided us all the URLs of each entry. That's how you manage to get access to each individual auction. It's like copy-pasting made easy, automatically. Imagine that how much time you would need to copy one URL and paste it to a spreadsheet, one by one, days, weeks, months. This process took me about 10 to 15 minutes with scraping. And we are talking about that one. Sorry for being very technical and nerdy, but I had to. So first, you get the URL from this box. Okay? Yes. Then, following these URLs, we looked through each entry during the second round of scraping, 3 in total, 4, we'll see, to collect the data for each different auction, meaning who started the auction. Most of the time is banks and now debt collector companies, which we can talk about these companies afterwards. The starting bid, the debtor, the date, all this information we just saw. All this. Imagine each box being a column on a spreadsheet. Perfect. We are together on that. And what is very important, the most important part, is always the PDF files. The PDF files are the confiscation or the court decision that initiates the auction. And what we can find in those PDFs, we can find the exact address of the auction property, because we cannot find it anywhere else. So that's why this is so important to being able to map down all these auctions. What I just talked about. The very, very bad thing about those PDFs is that they are written in a very Greek, formal way, a language that people at courts use. And apart from the address of the auction property, you also get the address of the bank that initiates the auction, as well as the person who is responsible for the processing of the auction, like a lawyer or, let's stick to lawyer. Yeah, I'm not sure about the other words. So, after we collected all this data, we managed to convert all of the different results. Imagine that after each round of scraping, you end up with a data set, with an Excel spreadsheet. 1, 2, 3. And in order to be able to work in a unified way and make sense of the results and get an image of what is really happening, you have to merge everything together into one data set. And that's what we did based on some specific information provided by the platform. This is more or less how it looks like. Now, this is very beautiful compared to what I had to deal with, because this is the end result. So, first column is the URL of the property on eauction.gr. Then you get the status of the auction, the hastener or initiator, the VAT number of the initiator. Those companies here, for me, are the most interesting ones, because they are the ones that buy the risk of the auction from the bank. So the bank gets rid of all the risk. It has to make the loan work. And it's been transferred to these companies, which, guess what, are most of the time incorporated in Ireland or other tax havens in Europe, such as Luxembourg. The type of the property, we're talking about just residences. It's not only homes that are being auctioned, parking lots, buildings, hotels, everything, each person or entity that has a non-performing loan a red loan or a loan that is not being serviced to the bank for 3 months is listed here. And of course, the most important part for this exercise, the exact address. And this became that, or that became this. And I think, yeah, that's it. The size of the circle, thanks, represents the first bid, the price one person has to pay to get this property. Most of the time, this first bid, this price, is much lower than the market price we all know today in Greece. For many different reasons. We don't have the time now, I guess. But yeah, people call me, they think that I work for, or because I know the industry, they call me and they are like, hey, we want to buy a house from the auctions, can you help? No, man, I'm not doing that at all. So yeah, I don't know, Jose, if you want to add anything or if people have questions, we are here to answer them.
Yeah, maybe I can add a few comments about the cross-border point of view, because again, this was an investigation involving, at the beginning, 16 cities in 16 countries. And some people actually asked me, they didn't ask me about buying a home, but they asked me as the coordinator about Athens, because Athens was really a single case. Because as Sotiris said, and as I said at the beginning, we wanted to map owners, like these big owners, how many homes they own, how many homes they have been buying for the last years. Ideally, we wanted to show that because the trend is increasing. They've been buying more and more and selling and making money, but the trend is that they tend to own more and more. And where? We wanted to find out addresses also in the other cities to tell you when we published where do they own homes and how many, also with sizes. Then, at that time, we couldn't do that about Athens at all. So then why to have Athens as part of a cross-border project based on data that doesn't exist, is not available in Greece, or about Athens? And that's what people ask me about the why cross-border. Well, as we Sotiris made it sound easy and quick. That was a lot of work. And okay, if this wasn't a cross-border project, he does all that work, publishes several stories, nice mapping in Greek, and then what? Nothing else. So just by being part of a cross-border investigation, that already makes it a bigger story. You get published in different countries, in different languages. The visualization, because we were a team, you gain the skills and the resources that other members of the team bring, so you can work better. You are already part of a bigger team. Only that already helps. But then, also, the whole idea of cities for rent came out of our personal frustration when looking for a home. I'm living now in Berlin. Before it was Barcelona. Good luck finding a rental apartment that you can afford in those cities. And then we saw that there are these big companies that tend, as I said, to own more and more housing across Europe. These companies operate across borders. They are based often in Luxembourg, Ireland, other places, also American ones. But in the EU and part of the neighboring countries, they operate in a single market, in effect. And they are very strategic about it. They have a lot of money, they have time, they operate long-term to move to this market, they market cycles, So they have this overview that we don't, unless we research and report from the cross-border point of view. We journalists, we citizens, we people, we all need to have that overview ourselves to be able to understand, to be able to talk about it and to influence policymaking about that, because otherwise we really can't compete. So that's why we had the idea of mapping, because this makes it, remember the spreadsheet? We had some huge spreadsheets there. I mean, they're terrifying to look at them, they are scary, but you turn them into a nice map and it already tells you much more information. And of course, in the actual reporting, we explain the methodology, what the sizes, the colors, and you have the stories to go with it. So this investigation had to be cross-border by definition. And then, yeah, why Athens if there's no data? Well, the lack of data is already a story in itself. Maybe you are reporting on your own country, on your own city, you have the idea for a story, there are no data, you don't do the story. But if you become part of a team in other cities in Europe, they do have the data, the fact that you can't access the data at home, it's a story already. So again, the cross-border turns these gaps into actual stories, visualizes those gaps by being part of a bigger thing. But then also people question, okay, fine, but anyway, Athens is still different because the issue there, or the issues there are the homes being auctioned because of the huge crisis that affected here, also in Spain, my home country, but here was bigger, and Airbnb, which Sotiris has also worked on. It's not really about these big corporate landlords that you guys are investigating, and I'm okay. But by having Athens as part of the cross-border reporting, that helps provide the bigger picture, because this reality at a smaller scale happened and has been happening in Spain. And in Spain it could grow, and then by researching this as a team, a cross-border team, reporting about it in different countries, again, we educate our audiences, we get informed, we get ourselves resources to deal with the situation. And for example, audiences in Spain can anticipate when the situation there becomes closer to Athens, or vice versa. Athens, Greece becomes more stabilized, more money is coming in, and then those same companies we have been investigating come here, start buying, start gentrifying. Now you know, now the journalist knows, and now the journalist knows all the journalists in other countries who research this and can ring and, hey, what about that data? We can update it. So that's also why it's worth it bringing a city like Athens into the cross-border point. And then my last argument, which is similar to the first one, about why cross-border. It always, I'm convinced, brings value, no matter what topic, what issue. Because these days, all the big issues are not big in terms of size. All the important issues, relevant issues, are cross-border by nature, everywhere, I would argue. I can sit down and bore you to death arguing in favor of that. Everywhere, but even more in Europe. Again, because of the single markets, because of the at different levels, the Schengen area, no borders we can cross. Viruses can cross borders quite easily, as we now all know all too well. And of course, money and the climate crisis the same, doesn't understand about borders. We need the cross-border level. It brings value always. It adds a dimension that every important story these days has. That's one side. And the other is the teams. Like, we from Southern Europe are different to people in Northern Europe. I was coordinating Sotiris, and we had colleagues in Norway, in the UK, in Italy, very different cultures, ways of thinking.
Much drama.
Another of our colleagues is there. And to me, I had to be kind of a diplomat to manage the whole team. We all spoke in English, which was almost no one's first language, but we meant different things. But that's challenging, and this work and this effort, but then the rewards are huge, because then you end up with a much more diverse team, which is much more able to deal with complexity. We can't tackle complex issues on our own. Or me with my bunch of Spanish friends, we lack perspective and skills. So that's why also cross-border in journalism always brings value. Now let's stop here so that we have some time for questions. But again, please, during these days, we can talk about this as much as you want. Before asking a question, please, they told us, wait to have the microphone, because this is being broadcast, and if you don't have the microphone, then it won't be picked up. So any questions, comments? And please, microphone to...
Hi, I would like to ask about what the next levels of your analysis, and what is the future of this investigation.
Perfect. So this investigation managed to do many things, but at the same time didn't do other. For me, what is important is to find out who bought eventually those houses, because this is not in the data. We do not know who owns those houses in Athens. Of course, I would like to expand to other regions, cover the whole country. It's impossible because it takes too much time. And after that, while talking with the other members, especially members in the South, where the issue of debt is somehow similar, we managed to find out companies that operate in both countries. And I can talk about the example of Italy and one specific company called doValue, which is in this section, this sector of companies who are servicing the loans, who are buying the loans from the bank together with the risk and all these financial, too technical words. From finding this same company operating in both countries and actually coming from Italy, I've been in touch with our Italian colleague in order to understand myself how these companies operate, so I'm in a position to tell a next story, another cross-border story, comparing the two different countries and how these companies operate in Italy, maybe Spain. In total, in Greece, there are 25-ish companies similar companies buying loans from the banks. The major ones come from Italy and Norway. So you see that we are talking about a next level, a next layer of investigating corporate landlords, focusing on the issue of debt, which, if you ask me, is the main driver of that investigation as well.
And if I may add, to keep it short, you asked for analysis or level of analysis of the investigation. To me, where I came from when I started having the first discussions about this possible investigation was we keep hearing about financialization of housing, and that's an expression that makes you a bit scared. And also these biggest owners, these companies, Blackstone, for example, in Spain was always quoted as the biggest landlord in Spain, or I also saw in Europe, in the world. Okay, but how many homes do they own? Then no one knew. There were some rounded figures. Okay, then how can we know which were not sourced? So to me, our investigation as a whole, and we have other nice visualizations, start making those two things real and start giving us data. Now I can see what financialization of housing means. So we have some visualizations in the whole research. You can go to the website, which show the amount of money that was coming into European cities, only to our cities, and totally was even more, year by year, and it was like 700% more right after the financial crisis, starting in 2011 or 12 until 2021 that we covered, and it had exploded. And then we also had the biggest investors. We got those data very late in our investigation. We could have exploited it even better. But now you can see names of companies and how much money, and per city, per year. We have some interactive maps, very cool ones. That's what the financialization of housing looks like at some level. Other level is people not being able to find a home or people being expelled. And then putting actual names, like the Blackstone and others, that I had never heard of, and figures, and everything sourced. So now we have some ground to stand on when we talk about those things. That to me is very important and links to the future. We published also on our website some data sets, some data catalog as we call it. We have our own spreadsheets, as I said, that look quite scary. The future is keep working on that. We need a data person or data people and more people who are paid, because that's a job and that's the problem always when you're a freelancer, especially to get that funded, to work on that, to reach out to other researchers, academia, people who are working on these topics, to start tracking funds, these money flows, because our data sadly finishes at the time we published. And it's been already like quite a number of months. So to keep it alive and to make a community out of this, who will look into it, get more data, keep publishing, that would be the ideal future. That we would need, money to pay people to do that. Yeah. And the time is over, I think. Or maybe 2 more questions? No, 2 minutes? 2 minutes. Maybe 2 more questions or 1 question? Or no question? No question, I think. Okay, then thank you for your interest. And for
Thanks.